Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to an episode of Sports Rant. I'm Steve, and let's talk baseball. In less than a week, it's going to be opening day in the 2020 baseball season. I decided I wanted to break down all 30 teams and predict each division winner and which teams make the postseason. I'm going to start by talking about the American League and then make my way over to the National League. First, let's talk about the American League East. For starters, I believe that the Baltimore Orioles will finish in 5th place in the American League East. I don't have much faith in the Baltimore Orioles. They had the second to worst record in the American League last year. Out of a 60-game season, I believe that they will finish with 20 to 25 wins. In terms of pitching, I believe that their only good starter is John Means. And for hitting, I don't believe they have any power hitters in comparison to previous seasons. They lose Jonathan Villar to the Florida Marlins. They also lose Trey Mancini. And I think that their only decent hitter in the lineup is Jose Iglesias. In 4th place in the American League East, I'm going to predict that the 4th place team will be the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox, who finished in 3rd place last year, I believe will have a worse year this year. They lose Mookie Betts and David Price, trading both of them to the LA Dodgers. On top of that, they no longer have Chris Sale since he has Tommy John surgery. Outside of both of them, I don't believe they have any good starting pitching outside of Eduardo Rodriguez. Hitting-wise, I think they are still a good team, but if we compare them to the hitting of the Yankees, the Rays, and the Blue Jays, I think that they take a step back in the wrong direction. I predict that the Blue Jays will finish in 3rd place in the American League East. I think that the Blue Jays have a lot of potential. They have a young core with hitters like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They also have Bo Bichette and Kevin Biggio. From a pitching aspect, they got Hyun-Jin Ryu, and I think that they have some flaws in their pitching, but I believe they can somewhat contend, at least for a wild card spot. For 2nd place in the American League East, I believe that will go to the Tampa Bay Rays. Last year, the Rays finished in 2nd place and gained the 2nd wild card. I believe that they will do that again for a 2nd year in a row. The Rays have a great pitching staff with Tyler Glasnow, Charlie Morton, and Blake Snell. They've got a very fierce bullpen, and I think that hitting can go nearly neck and neck with the Yankees in some power aspects. With hitters like Austin Meadows, Jose Martinez, Hunter Renfroe, I believe that the Rays have a lot of power and a lot of options to choose from in the DH spot this season. In 1st place in the American League East, I'm going to give it to the New York Yankees. During the offseason, they added Garrett Cole to the starting rotation, and although they lose Luis Severino, they have James Paxton, Masahiro Tanaka, and J.A. Happ. I think that it's going to be tough for their 5th spot, whether it goes to Jordan Montgomery, but I still believe that they have one of the greatest pitching in the entire American League. And from a hitting element, I think all 9 hitters in the lineup are powerful. From Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Gary Sanchez. There's going to be so many different hitters in the lineup that can go for straight power and try and get as many home runs. So I'm going to have the Yankees ranked as 1st place in the American League East. So now let's talk about the American League Central. I predict that the Detroit Tigers will finish in last place in the American League Central. They were the worst team in all of baseball last year, and I believe that once again they will be the worst team this year. Last year, they finished with one of the worst records in baseball history. This year, in a 60-game season, I believe they could potentially finish with less than 20 wins. I say that they finish with 17 to 22 wins out of 60 games that I have no faith in the team. Outside of a few decent new additions that they added with Jonathan Scope, CJ Cron, Cameron Maben, I don't have any faith in the hitting. Okay, next I believe the Royals will finish in 4th place. The Royals did not improve during the offseason in any form of pitching. In terms of hitting, they have Salvador Perez returning after missing all of 2019. They've got Alex Gordon back, and they also got Michael Franco from the Phillies during the offseason. Outside of those additions, I believe that any core that the Royals have had, when they won the World Series 5 years ago, I think that is gone. There's potential in Hunter Dozier and Whit Merrifield, but that's still a long way off for them to contend in their division. In 3rd place, I believe that the Cleveland Indians will reach those grounds. The Cleveland Indians had a poor ending to the season last year, missing the wild card. This year during the offseason, they really did not do anything to benefit the team. They ended up trading Corey Kluber, who was their second best pitcher. Last year they traded Trevor Bauer, and this year they only added Cesar Hernandez to the infield. If we were to compare the current team to the Minnesota Twins and the Chicago White Sox, I don't think they fare well compared to them. They still have some great hitters like Francisco Lindor and Carlos Santana, but I think that they still will just finish in 3rd place. In 2nd place in the American League Central, I believe that the Chicago White Sox will finish in 2nd. The Chicago White Sox had a great offseason. They added Dallas Keuchel, who was a great starter in previous years. They added All-Star Yasmani Grandal. They also added Edward Encarnacion. I think that there is a lot of potential in the Chicago White Sox to win the wild card. I don't believe they can go neck and neck with the Minnesota Twins, but I still believe they have an advantage over the Cleveland Indians and the Kansas City Royals. Lastly, in the American League Central, I believe that the Minnesota Twins will once again win the division. The Minnesota Twins set a record for the most home runs in 2019, and if anything, I think they've gotten stronger in comparison to last year. During the offseason, they added slugger and all-star Josh Donaldson. So you add Donaldson to the lineup, you already also have Nelson Cruz and Jorge Polanco, along with Miguel Sano, and this is one powerful team. While I'm not sure necessarily how they will be going up against teams such as the Yankees or the Astros in the playoffs, I can say that the Twins are the best team in the American League Central. So the last division I'm going to speak of in the American League is the American League West. Going for 5th place in the American League West will be the Seattle Mariners. Last year, the Mariners had a very hot start to start the year. They won majority of their games, and then they just completely collapsed. This year, I once again have no faith in the team. They weren't the worst team in the American League, but they definitely were at the very bottom. When looking back at the offseason, I don't believe they really added any new additions to the team. They are going to be without a lot of different players still. They still won't have Mitch Haniger. And I think that it's going to be a long way until the Mariners can truly contend. For 4th place in the American League West, I believe that will go to the Texas Rangers. I like the Texas Rangers, and I believe that there's potential in them, but at the same time, they still could have had a better offseason in comparison to the other teams in their division. They added Robinson Chirinos as their catcher. They've got Todd Frazier. Like I said earlier, they also got Corey Kluber. But I still believe it's a long shot for them to win their division. I definitely believe, though, that Joey Gallo could have potentially an MVP type season at the plate. And I think that Mike Minor and Lance Lynn will also have a great year starting pitching for the team. Next up is the Los Angeles Angels finishing in third place for the American League West. Now, I kind of expected that the Angels would have moved up further in the division, but sadly, I don't believe that's the case. They added Anthony Rendon, who is going to rake for them. So you have Trout, Rendon, and Shohei Ohtani, all great hitters in the lineup. But at the same time, you look at pitching, and pitching still is a problem for the team. And they added Julio Teheran, who was a good pitcher for the Braves, but he's no longer in his prime. So I think that if the Angels can get a new pitcher, maybe at the trade deadline, maybe they can go for second place for a wild card spot. I definitely don't believe they will finish in first place. For second place in the American League West, I believe that will go to the Oakland A's. Oakland has won second place, I think, for 2 consecutive years. But the problem with the Oakland A's is they make it to the wild card game, but they have not successfully made it to the division series. Oakland has a great team to contend between players like Marcus Semien, Matt Olson. I think that they definitely have come a long way, and I think that they will most likely be one of the teams to finish with a wild card spot. Lastly, and it saddens me to predict this, but I believe that the Houston Astros will finish in first place in the American League West. After everything that happened in the offseason for the Astros with the cheating scandal, I still believe they're going to finish in first place. A reason for this, too, is because due to the pandemic, all teams are going to have where they play without fans in the stands. The Astros, as a result, will strive on that because they won't have any fans to boo them. And although they lose Garrett Cole in the offseason to the Yankees, they still have Justin Verlander and Zach Greinke. And when you look at their offense from last year, they only lost Robinson Chirinos. Otherwise, they still have Springer, they still have Altuve, they still have Bregman and Correa. As I conclude talking about the American League, I will say that to wrap that section up, the Astros win the West, the Yankees win the East, and the Twins win the Central. So now it's time for me to begin talking about the National League. I'll start by talking about the National League East. I believe that the Florida Marlins will finish in 5th place in the National League East. Now, the Marlins are a team that has been horrible for about 2 years, and I believe this will be the 3rd year. They have a young core of players, but they still need a lot of work done in order to contend. During the offseason, they got Jesus Aguilar, Corey Dickerson, and Jonathan Villar. And while they're a bunch of veteran talents, they still need pitching, and that's been one of the biggest problems of the Florida Marlins. On top of that, they have to play majority of their games against NL East teams, and the NL East is already a stacked division. So because of that, I definitely don't see them contending. And like I've said for previous teams earlier, I believe that they will finish with 20 to 25 wins. For the 4th place spot in the National League East, I believe that's going to go to the Philadelphia Phillies. While I like the move of Joe Girardi becoming their new manager, I still can't help but feel like they'll once again finish in 4th place. Now, they have a few additions that they added Didi Gregorius and Zach Wheeler, but I still don't believe that's enough for them to contend with the other teams in the East. As a result, I think that they will be average at best. If anything, I feel like they'll finish at 500. But I do believe that Bryce Harper, Andrew McCutchen, and JT Realmuto will have great years. I would like to see maybe if Bryce Harper could have an MVP caliber type year in 60 games. In 3rd place for the National League East, I believe that's going to go to the defending World Series champions, Washington Nationals. Now, the Nationals took me by surprise last year when they were able to win the World Series. This year they brought back majority of the same players as last year, but the biggest loss is Anthony Rendon. Now, when I compare this team that they have compared to last year, they have some new additions that they could benefit from, with the new additions of Eric Thames, Starlin Castro, and Will Harris. On the other side of things, even though they got some new additions to the team, I still believe it's going to be a tough battle for them to win the division when going up against both the Braves and the Mets. Next up in the National League East, for second place, the New York Mets. Now, I was disappointed in how the season ended for the Mets last year. They were 3 games out of a wild card spot. I think that this year could be a better year if they play the way they played in the second half of 2019. Last year in 2019, during their second half, they won majority of the games and as a result finished 10 games over 500. Now, when looking at who they added to the team, they've got Dellin Betances added. They also got Jake Marisnick. Starting pitching, they now have Rick Porcello and Michael Wacha. They lose Noah Syndergaard to Tommy John surgery, but I still believe that this is a potential wild card winner. I definitely think that the Mets will have a good shot of reaching the postseason, especially if players like Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil have similar years to last year. Lastly, for first place in the National League East, I'm going to predict that was going to go to the Atlanta Braves. The Braves have won the NL East back-to-back years in 2018 and 19, and I think 2020 will also be their year. They pretty much have everybody from last year minus Josh Donaldson, Nick Markakis, and Brian McCann, but the new additions of Travis d'Arnaud, Yasiel Puig, and Marcell Ozuna, I believe that they definitely fixed the spots that needed fixing and definitely have a strong chance of winning that division. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out in the National League East, especially when you have to add in the fact that they have to play the American League East multiple times as well. Now I'm going to talk about the National League Central. Finishing in last place in the National League Central, I believe it will be the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think the Pirates are easily one of the worst teams in the National League, maybe outside of the Marlins and the Rockies. Pirates are the third worst. But anyway, I think that they will finish in last place. They really have nothing special in terms of pitching, and outside of maybe Josh Bell, I don't believe they have much power to them hitting. It's going to be interesting to see, but I definitely think that the Pirates need to rebuild, get some new pieces maybe during the trade deadline, and see where they go from there. Finishing in fourth place in the National League Central, I believe will be the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, the Brewers had a very surprising year last year, making the playoffs for a second year. Although they were able to achieve that goal, I don't believe that that's going to happen in 2020. They lose Yasmani Grandal, and they also lose Mike Moustakas. They added a bunch of different replacement players along the way, but at the same time, it doesn't make up for the players that were traded or released during the offseason. I definitely think that Christian Yelich could have an MVP season similar to the way his season was last year and in his MVP season in 2018. If we compare the Brewers to teams such as the Cubs, the Cardinals, and the Reds, I think that they're going to be taking a step back this year, especially when looking at the players that were lost during the offseason. Finishing in third place in the National League Central, I believe that's going to go to the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs collapsed last year towards the very end of 2019, and as a result, they missed the playoffs for the first time since 2014. Now, the Cubs really did not improve much during the offseason, but I still believe that they have a good chance based on the hitting core that they have with players such as Kyle Schwarber, Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, and Wilson Contreras. I think that the Cubs still are going to contend, but at the same time, I'm not necessarily sure if they will be able to reach the postseason off of a wild card spot. I think that this will be a year for the Cubs that will either make or break them when determining who stays on the team next year for 2021. Next up, I believe the St. Louis Cardinals will finish in second place in the National League Central. The Cardinals were able to successfully win their division last year on the final game of the season. They were able to make it to the NLCS, but unfortunately for them, they were swept by the Nationals. I felt that during the offseason they would improve the team, but as a result, I don't think that they really made much changes, especially when losing Marcell Ozuna to the Atlanta Braves. I still believe they have a good team, though. I think that Jack Flaherty has a good shot of maybe winning the Cy Young in the National League. As a result, though, I think the most that the Cardinals will finish with is a wild card spot. Lastly, in the National League Central, and this is going to surprise a lot of people, I believe that the Cincinnati Reds will finish in first place. When looking at the Cincinnati Reds, they have not been a great team at all throughout the years, but I think that this year is going to be different. They added Mike Moustakas during the offseason, along with Nicholas Castellanos. And on top of that, I think that they're going to have some great pitching with Trevor Bauer, Sonny Gray, and Luis Castillo. It's a long shot for the Cincinnati Reds, but at the same time, when you compare the Reds to all the teams in the National League Central, I think they have the best schedule. And the fact that they're going to be playing teams such as the Royals and also the Detroit Tigers, that's only going to make their schedule much better. And as a result, I'm going to crown them the potential National League Central Division champs. Alright, so now I'm down to just talking about the National League West. To start things off, I believe that the Colorado Rockies will finish in 5th place in the National League West. I don't believe that they made any significant changes during the offseason. Recently, Ian Desmond opted out of the season. So when looking at the Rockies and what they have to endure during 60 games, I just don't think they have a chance at all to contend during this 60-game season. Next up, finishing in 4th place in the National League West, I believe that's going to go to the San Francisco Giants. The Giants are not the team they once were. They were a great team in previous years when they won 3 World Series during the 2010s. Now you look at them in 2020, they lose Madison Bumgarner, and they recently lost Buster Posey. In terms of who they added during the offseason, they really didn't add anyone too special. They added Wilmer Flores, they added Drew Smyly. But outside of them, I don't think that they will have a chance at contending. It was interesting during the off-season last year how they decided to buy instead of selling at the trade deadline. But I think that, like some of the teams I talked about earlier, I think that they're going to need to rebuild if they really want to contend in the future. Next, finishing in 3rd place in the National League West, I think that that's going to go to the San Diego Padres. I had hopes for them last year in 2019 after they signed Manny Machado and Eric Hosmer during the offseason, but as a result, if I'm not mistaken, they finished in last place last year. I think they'll potentially have a better year this year, but I don't believe it's going to be enough for them to completely contend for the postseason. I can, however, see an MVP caliber type season for Fernando Tatis Jr. I think that this year will be a big year for him just like last year. I also got to add the fact that some of the additions they added in the offseason could potentially improve them in terms of pitching, but they still need to go up against the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks, and that's just something I just can't see them achieve. Next, for 2nd place in the National League West, I think that that's going to go to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, as I said earlier, Madison Bumgarner left the Giants during the offseason, and to my surprise, ended up signing with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And the Diamondbacks, I think, have a team with potential, but to compete neck and neck with the Dodgers, I just don't see it happening. I'm happy for them in the sense that they ended up getting Sterling Marte during the offseason, and I think that they have a good team, definitely a team that can contend for a wild card spot. But in terms of them winning their division, I just don't see that happening. And now finally, the winner of the National League West division, I believe that's going to go to the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers have won their division every year since, I believe, 2013, and I think 2020 is going to be no different for them. They're the best team in the National League. The recent addition of Mookie Betts is only going to make them better. It's going to be interesting to see how they do during the postseason, because I think it was a big shocker that they lost the division series last year to the Nationals in Game 5. I would hope to see them improve from a pitching perspective. I don't believe that Clayton Kershaw is who he once was, but I have faith in Walker Buehler that he can become the ace of the Dodgers. So wrapping up the winners of each division in the National League. For first place in the East, I believe that's going to go to the Atlanta Braves. For first place in the Central, I believe that's going to go to the Cincinnati Reds. And first place for the West, it's going to be the LA Dodgers. I'm not going to predict who I think wins the World Series, but I will predict the two teams I believe will reach the World Series. I think that the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers will be the American League and National League champions. I think that 2020 could potentially be the year for a New York versus LA matchup. I did believe that last year, though, so I don't necessarily know whether or not it could definitely occur, but I truly hope the Astros do not reach the World Series. So overall, a lot is going to happen in the game span of 60 games. At the same time, these are all just my predictions. I really am interested to find out come the very end of September if any of my predictions come true. Opening day is going to be on July 23rd. The Yankees play the Nationals and the Giants play the Dodgers. It's going to be an interesting season. I look forward to seeing the end results, and I'm going to try and make more videos or podcasts along the way covering the season. Maybe halfway through the season or during the trade deadline, I'll give some updates and my thoughts of the teams. But for right now, these are all my predictions. I hope to hear your thoughts on these predictions. Who do you think will win their division? Who do you think will make the playoffs? And who do you think will win the World Series? Leave a like, leave a comment, and I'll see you next time for another episode of Sports Rant.